Okay, so get this. Today we're diving into the world of math. We're talking about 4 different research papers, each tackling a really unique mathematical challenge. And you know we're here to break it all down. No jargon-filled lectures here, just pure aha moments. You handed us papers ranging from likelihood geometry to something called Erdős-Rényi hypergraphs. Honestly, my curiosity's peaked. Let's dive into the first one. It's 2409.037.0v1.pdf, and this one focuses on something called the squared Grassmannian. Now, I know that sounds intimidating, but trust me, it gets really interesting.
You see, this paper is all about predicting probabilities. But here's the catch. It's about predicting probabilities in sets, not just single events. Think of those customers who bought this, also bought recommendations you see online. That's using this kind of math. This paper helps make those recommendations even more spot on. That squared Grassmannian thing is basically a mathematical framework for mapping out all the possible combinations of items people might buy together. This paper helps us navigate that map more effectively. It's like, imagine you're trying to predict not just if someone will buy a toothbrush, but if they'll buy a toothbrush, toothpaste, and floss together. This math helps us do that. So what's new and exciting in this paper? Well, for ages, mathematicians had this hunch, a conjecture, about how many critical points existed in this model. Think of these points like landmarks on our probability map. Knowing where they are is key for making those scarily accurate predictions. This paper actually proved that conjecture, showing there's a very specific number of these critical points calculated with a formula they figured out. But it's not just about proving some abstract mathematical idea. The really cool part, this breakthrough could make those online recommendations even more accurate. Plus, it has huge implications for machine learning in general, which relies heavily on these probability models.
Now, speaking of cool visuals, the next paper, 2409.03718v1.pdf, is right up our alley. It's all about using AI, specifically something called GIM diffusion, to create super realistic textures and 3D shapes in computer graphics. Think about how lifelike video game environments are these days. This is part of how they do it.
What's really neat here is that they're not just using one AI, but two working in tandem. One AI focuses on the texture of a surface like the rough bark of a tree or the smooth surface of a car. The other AI concentrates on the object's actual 3D shape. Is it a tree trunk or a car chassis? And get this, these two AIs, they actually talk to each other. They use a system where they constantly share information, refining both the texture and the shape until they get a final result that's incredibly realistic. It's like having a sculptor and a painter collaborating on a masterpiece.
Now, while this technology is obviously a game changer for video games, its potential stretches far beyond. Imagine its use in VR and AR. We could have incredibly immersive experiences almost indistinguishable from reality. Think about architects designing buildings in VR, being able to walk through and experience the space with realistic textures and lighting before a single brick is laid. That's what this technology could unlock. Now let's shift gears to something a bit more theoretical, but with potentially huge payoffs. 240mine.03730v1.pdf. This paper cracked a long-standing mathematical mystery involving something called critical points in a specific type of probability model. Why should we care about these critical points? Well, it all boils down to this thing called maximum likelihood estimation, or MLE. Basically, it's a way for statisticians to find the best fit for their data. Imagine you're trying to draw the perfect curve through a scatter plot of data points. MLE helps you find that perfect curve, the one that's most likely to have generated those points in the first place.
Now, those critical points we were talking about, they act like signposts on this quest for the best fit. They show us where to look for the most likely solutions. What this paper did was prove a long-held suspicion about the number and nature of these critical points for a specific type of probability model. It's a bit like finding the missing piece of a puzzle mathematicians have been working on for years. But here's the kicker. It's not just about solving a theoretical puzzle. This breakthrough could lead to better, faster ways of finding the best solution among a massive number of possibilities. Think about applications like machine learning economics or even optimizing traffic flow in a city. This breakthrough could have a real impact. Now, last but definitely not least, let's unravel the mystery of Erdős-Rényi hypergraphs in 249.03756v1.pdf. Sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi novel, right? But beneath the complex name lies a surprisingly intuitive concept. Imagine you're trying to represent relationships between things. A regular graph connects 2 points with a line like showing a friendship between 2 people. But what if you want to show a group of friends? That's where hypergraphs come in. They allow us to connect multiple points with a single edge. Think of it like drawing a circle around a group of friends to show they all belong together. And these Erdős-Rényi hypergraphs, they're a specific type where those connections, those circles around friends, are formed randomly based on a certain probability. This randomness might seem well random, but it actually lets mathematicians study the average behavior of these networks. That can give us real insights into how real-world networks operate, everything from social connections to the spread of information online. Now the paper dives into something called the spectra of these hypergraphs, which sounds super technical, but is actually pretty cool. Think of the spectrum as a hypergraph's fingerprint. It reveals the network's hidden structure, how interconnected it is, how information might flow through it. Analyzing the spectrum can uncover fascinating insights. For example, in a social network, the way those Bayesian values cluster can tell us if it's a tight-knit community where information spreads quickly, or a more dispersed network with slower information flow. It's like seeing the social fabric from a mathematical perspective.
Okay, that's way cooler than I initially thought. So this paper specifically looked at Erdos-Renyi hypergraphs, right? What new tricks did they uncover about those fingerprints?
They focused on how these spectral fingerprints change as the hypergraph grows. Imagine adding more people to that social network and seeing how the connections evolve. They proved some pretty significant results about the distribution of these eigenvalues as the network scales up.
Yeah.
Think of it like this. They're basically mapping out the typical patterns you'd see in these randomly formed networks.
Interesting. So by understanding those patterns, what can we actually do with that knowledge?
This understanding unlocks a treasure trove of applications. For instance, think about modeling how a disease spreads through a population. By representing it as a hypergraph, with people as points and contact between them as edges, we can use these mathematical results to model the spread. We could potentially predict how fast the disease might spread, identify superspreaders, or even test the effectiveness of different intervention strategies. It's like having a mathematical crystal ball helping us make more informed public health decisions.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, I know we briefly touched on data importance from 2409.03741v1.pdf earlier. What exactly is data importance and why should we even care?
Not all data is created equal. In the world of machine learning, some data points pack a much bigger punch than others, wielding more influence over a model's training and performance. For example, imagine training an AI to recognize cats. You show it thousands of cat pictures, but some images are just more quintessential cat than others. Those standout images, the ones with perfect cat, poses clear features. Those are your high-importance data points. They disproportionately influence how the AI learns to identify a cat.
So those super cat pictures are like the star pupils in AI school.
Precisely. And this paper dives into a fascinating question. Are these star pupils also more vulnerable? Could those high-importance data points be easier targets for attacks?
Attacks, like hackers trying to break into the system.
Not quite. We're talking about attacks that directly target the AI model itself. Think of it like trying to trick the AI either to steal its secrets or make it misbehave.
Okay, this just got a whole lot more interesting. Tell me more about these attacks.
They investigated 5 different attack types. First up is the membership inference attack. The goal here is to figure out if a specific data point, like a picture of your cat, was used to train the AI model. Imagine someone could take your cat picture, feed it to the AI, and determine if that specific image was part of the training data. That could have privacy implications, right?
That's a bit unsettling, to say the least. So did the paper find that high-importance data is more vulnerable to this kind of attack?
That's precisely what they discovered. High-importance data points are like those kids who always leave a trail of glitter wherever they go. They're just easier to track. They leave a more distinct fingerprint on the AI model, making it easier for attackers to identify them.
That's a little scary. What about the other attacks? Give me the rundown.
Next up, we have model stealing attacks. Imagine corporate espionage, but for AI.
So stealing the AI's brain instead of trade secrets.
Exactly. Attackers try to create a replica of the target AI without having access to its inner workings, sort of like cloning your star student. And guess what? They found that those high-importance data points are the keys to unlocking a successful clone. Then there's the backdoor attack, which is like planting a secret trigger inside the AI's decision-making process.
Okay, so instead of a secret knock, it's like a hidden code word that makes the AI go haywire.
You got it. And what they discovered is that if you poison those high-importance data points during training, sneak in that trigger word, the attack becomes even more potent.
Yikes. Okay, what else do we have in this rogues gallery of attacks?
2 more to go. Next is attribute inference. This one's about uncovering sensitive personal information based on the AI's output. For example, imagine you use a facial recognition system, and someone could use that system indirectly to figure out your age, gender, or other personal details.
Okay, so like using the AI to basically profile someone without ever directly accessing their data. That's concerning.
Right. And finally, we have data reconstruction attacks. This is the most direct approach, attempting to rebuild the original training data from the AI model itself. Think of it like trying to piece together a shredded document. The AI model is the reconstructed document, and the attackers are trying to get those original shreds of data back.
Wow, that's intense. So for these last two attacks were high importance data points also more at risk? Give me some good news.
Well, the findings here are a bit nuanced. They found no significant difference between high and low importance data points for these attacks.
So it's not all bad news. At least those attacks aren't specifically targeting the most influential data.
That's one way to look at it. It suggests that these attacks are less about the specific data points and more about the inherent vulnerabilities within the model itself. But here's where things get really interesting. The paper introduces this fascinating concept called the privacy onion effect.
The privacy onion effect. You've officially piqued my curiosity. What's that all about? Okay, you can't just drop a name like the privacy onion effect and not explain it. What's the analogy here?
Think about what happens when you peel an onion. You remove those outer layers, and the inner layers become more exposed, right? Well, in a data set, when you remove high-importance data points, maybe for privacy reasons, you're trying to protect those outer layers, the remaining data points, those inner layers, become more important to the model's performance. They're carrying more weight now.
So it's like a game of whack-a-mole. You try to protect one data point and another one pops up as a potential target.
It's a brilliant analogy, and it highlights the paradoxical challenge of data privacy in machine learning. Even with good intentions, removing sensitive data might inadvertently make other data points more vulnerable simply because they become more central to the AI's understanding.
That is a mind-blowing paradox. It's like you can't hide anything from these AI models. So what can we do? How do we protect against all these attacks, especially with this onion effect in play?
That's the million-dollar question. And this paper emphasizes the urgent need for more advanced defense mechanisms. We need strategies that factor in the shifting importance of data points, understanding that today's low-importance data could be tomorrow's prime target. But it's not just about technical solutions. This research forces us to rethink data privacy from the ground up, how we collect data, store it, use it, because traditional approaches might not cut it in this new world of ever-evolving AI.
It's a whole new ballgame. Speaking of which, we didn't delve too deeply into how model stealing actually works. What's the play-by-play of that attack?
Picture this: an attacker wants to steal your prized cat-identifying AI. They don't need to break into your system. Instead, they interact with it, feeding it carefully selected cat images and observing how it responds.
So they're basically playing a game of 20 questions with the AI trying to reverse engineer its decision-making process.
Exactly. By analyzing the AI's responses to different images, the attacker gradually builds a blueprint of its internal logic, its cat recognition strategy.
And then they use that stolen blueprint to create a copycat AI, like a set of instructions for building a clone.
Spot on. It's intellectual property theft, but in the world of AI. And remember, those high-importance data points, these supercat pictures. The paper found that if the attacker uses those types of images, those that best represent the original training data, the model stealing attack becomes even more effective.
So if you trained your AI on pictures of tabby cats, the attacker would have more success using more pictures of, say, Persian cats.
Not quite. The attacker would want to stick with images of tabby cats. But they'd seek out those quintessential tabby images, the ones most representative of what the model considers a tabby. It's about finding the data that holds the most weight in the AI's decision-making, the information it finds most valuable.
Wow, the level of strategy in this is mind-boggling. But what if the attacker doesn't have access to that perfect representative data? What if they use images from a different data set?
That's where it gets really intriguing. The research suggests that in those cases, the importance of data might not transfer over. Those supercat pictures from one data set might not be as valuable for stealing a model trained on a different data set.
So a supercat in one AI's eyes might just be an average cat in another's. That's wild.
Precisely. Data importance is all about context. What one AI considers a key example might just be another AI's seen it. It all boils down to how that specific AI learned and what it deems important in its world.
So, to wrap things up, we've gone on this incredible journey through 4 different research papers, each delving into a unique facet of mathematics. We've seen how math underpins everything from predicting our online shopping habits to generating breathtaking virtual worlds to understanding the very fabric of complex networks.
And importantly, we've seen how this seemingly abstract field tackles real-world challenges, optimizing algorithms, designing more robust AI, even modeling the spread of diseases.
What I find most fascinating is that this is just the tip of the iceberg. As we continue to push the boundaries of mathematics, who knows what mind-blowing discoveries await? What other hidden connections will we uncover? What other seemingly impossible problems will we solve with the power of math? And that's what makes this field so exciting. It's a constantly evolving puzzle, and we're all invited to join the adventure. So to our listeners, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and most importantly, never stop being amazed by the elegance and power of mathematics. Until next time.